everyone, welcome back to another episode of Stories of Us. Today I'm here with Bill Merickel. He is an entrepreneur and the founder of AppWiz. So I guess, how has quarantine been for you?
Pretty good actually. I had my graduation yesterday, which was pretty nice. But it's been interesting because my school, like all of our assignments when we got out in March were now optional. So we didn't have to do any work. So I've been using the time to work on like personal projects and stuff.
Was it like a virtual graduation or was it in person?
It was a drive-by graduation. So we were allowed to have one car and I was able to fit my family in it. And basically we drove around in the parking lot to like different stations and they gave us like, our packages and stuff, the medals and all that. And then I got to get out of the car at the end and just walk up on the stage and take the diploma, but I couldn't like interact with anyone.
How was that? Was it, I guess.
It was, given the circumstances, because the schools have to follow the rules, they did a pretty good job. So I give them a lot of credit for it. I think they did good.
Okay, that's good. Tell me a bit about like the projects you've been working on right now.
Yeah, so the biggest one I've been working on is my startup. It's called AppWiz. It's definitely evolved over the years. It started out when I made an app for my school, and it was a communications app mainly for parents, for them to like check the newsletters, see what's going on the calendar, stuff like that. And then it was pretty well received. So I was like, you know what, I have an idea. I kind of want to see if I just turn myself into a freelance app developer, but I make it under a company called AppWiz. And so I did that, and I later made an app for a California-based tutoring group called Mary Education. And they were the same group that I went to for like my SATs and all that stuff for tutoring. And then I got accepted into the QuarterZero program. That's actually where I met Jesse.
Jesse, yeah.
Is the summer program where it focuses on entrepreneurship and learning about different business models and trying to figure out, whether your business idea is sustainable or not. So I went through that program, met a couple of people, Jesse included, and we kind of transformed the business a little bit from a general freelance app development company into a company that was catered towards developing communication apps for schools. And after I left that program, I started working on an emergency communication app for a school in my district. I didn't attend it, but I was talking with the principal and he said he was interested. And so I'm still working on that with him. We've been definitely set back because of the virus thing. And I haven't been able, he's been very busy with working on like graduation and stuff. And so the project has been slowed down a little bit because of that. But in the meantime, what I'm trying to do is build one app that it doesn't even have to be for school specifically. It can be any group, but any group that wants some emergency communication platform where, actually I have my phone out, so I should be able to show you. But basically the way that I have it set up is there's this main stream where once a user logs on, and so basically to get on this app, like after they pay us and they sign our contracts, what we'll do is we get the name of their group, and then we get the names, or not the names, we get the emails of all of the group members, and we make accounts for them, and then they just sign in, and it'll automatically register them to a school. So every group, when they log on, gets put onto this mainstream. So it's like basically a mega group chat, but then you can also like have individual group chats. I don't think my camera's picking this up because of the light, but like an example of an individual chat, and you can make group chats with multiple people too. So it's basically, it kind of serves two functions. One of them's just like, if you know of the app Remind, it's kind of like that a little bit for everyone, except it's not just like anyone can log on, it's specific just for your school. And then you can also, like, let's say if you wanted to make an admin only group chat, you can do that. And so the app is really intended for emergency communication, but obviously, when they use the app, they use it for whatever they want. And I don't monitor with that whatsoever. So I kind of went through a little bit of a shift because I was originally going to make individual apps for each school, but I learned that that's pretty unsustainable and it would take a lot of effort. I was like, no, it's definitely better just to make one app and then have schools log on. Like I'll just make new accounts for each schools. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now with that project.
So what was I guess the problem with internal school communication? Because There's like stuff like Remind, like you said. I guess like
Right.
how does your app make it a little bit easier and better than like existing communication platforms?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is that most schools actually don't know about these existing solutions. Like when I was talking with, um, I guess call them my clients, if you will, my current client, they were they were like, yeah, if we don't have our teachers' phone numbers, and the biggest thing is privacy because a lot of teachers and staff, they're not inclined to give out their phone numbers for a number of reasons. One, they don't want their students to get their hands on phone numbers. Other times they just feel uncomfortable sharing their phone numbers with other teachers and staff. And so this app makes it in a way where it's like, okay, you don't need to share. It's basically texting, but you don't need to share your phone number. Everything is kept to the professional accounts that you have, like your professional email. Remind, you can do stuff like that, but Remind is for like, Remind's basically centered towards a different target. They're really for classroom notifications, and Reminds, you can link like Google Docs, you can link it up to, I think you can link it to Google Classroom, stuff like that. That app is intended for teachers to use with students, whereas mine is not. Mine is more intended just for staff only. Like the students would never, like they would never have access to those messages and stuff. So, and the other big thing too is most of my competitors, they like to, like they love to emphasize features. They love to
Yeah.
emphasize like, oh, these are all the different things we can do. But as I'm talking with all these people like Jesse and I and the rest of my AppWiz team, over the summer, we did a lot of customer discovery where we were going through several different interviews of like various school admin representatives. And we found that like less is more for them. They don't want all these features. They'd rather pay a lower price and not have as many features. They just want it to be, I don't want to say the bare line minimum because that kind of sounds a little bit degrading, but it's like,
Yeah.
if they want an emergency communication app, they just want to text, maybe send photos, stuff like that. They don't need all these fancy features. And so that's what we did, was we just made a fancy, I guess not fancy. It kind of looks fancy, but like we try to keep the design aesthetic there. Like we really wanted it to be a very clean looking app. And it's pretty minimal in a sense, but it gets the job done. And we found that that is ultimately what a lot of these school admins prefer.
Yeah, I also imagine that it would be a lot easier to use than like probably an app with a lot of features, especially for people in like older ages, like faculty members and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. If your parents or any adults that you know have trouble using their phones, I don't know about you, my parents do. Like pretty much a lot of adults that I know that are just not in it with the tech world and really, they can barely like unlock their iPhones, for instance.
Yeah.
Really, the goal is you should never be confused when using the app. Like it's supposed to be stupid simple, essentially. But that's
Yeah.
what they want, though. Like maybe for our generation, we don't necessarily need that because we know how to operate the technology, but it's not for our generation, it's for them. And so we need to make it as simple as possible to appeal to
Yeah,
them.
you're definitely true about adults. My mom texts with her like pointer finger rather than like
Yeah.
so yeah.
She just like types
Yeah,
it in
she's
like
just
that.
like, it takes so much
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, so how did you get this idea and like what kind of inspired you to go into entrepreneurship in this entire field?
Yeah, so the idea was really inspired because my mom was the PTSA president at my school. She was really, really involved with trying to get other parents involved. And the biggest responsibility that she had was communicating various events that we had on our school, like fundraisers to raise money for the PTSA, different events for parents to come on campus and enjoy. And she found that it was incredibly difficult to reach out to parents because they, believe it or not, they really don't check their emails that much,
Yeah.
especially emails from the school. They just kind of ignore. And so it was pretty difficult to reach out to them. So that gave me the idea of, the schools they're starting to struggle with this communication aspect. And what I learned is, while that's a problem, and I definitely tend to address that, I want to do more research on how schools are reaching out to parents, see how that can be made more effective. But as the team kind of went through our customer discovery process, we noticed that another huge issue that it seems like nobody's addressed is emergency communication on schools. Like there are way more competitors for, here's a school app where your parents can check the newsletters and check your kids' grades and all that stuff. But nobody has an emergency communication app catered just for schools.
What do you mean by emergency communication?
Let's say we could, a number of scenarios, we'll say an active shooter on campus, we'll
Okay,
say an earthquake, a fire, things like that. In the ideal world, it would be nice for them to never have to use my app, but
yeah,
it is the real world and things happen. So, and when I was talking to my client, they were like, well, right now we really don't have a way to reach out to anyone. What the principal said he can do is he can get on his laptop and send out a thing, but that isn't feasible because A, you'd have to have the laptop on you.
yeah.
B, if I usually just use the shooter example, which, I don't like using, but
But yeah,
like you're hiding in a cupboard or something, you're not going to have your laptop out typing, but your phone is always on your person,
that's
pretty
right.
much always. So it's so much easier to reach out. But not every admin not every admin member has all the teachers. Maybe they don't want a giant group chat, things like that. And so that's kind of the gap that my app is trying to fix.
Gotcha. I totally.
Yeah.
I guess I'm definitely a person that's like outside of this entire startup culture, entrepreneurship kind of society, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, for me, from an outsider, it seems like there is a lot of like very cool and innovative things that are happening, but it also seems very pressurizing in a way. Like, can you talk a little about any like negatives of the entrepreneurial culture? Which is like not a really good question, but I guess
No,
that's
no, it is. It is. Yeah, I guess one thing that I've noticed, and this is something that I try not to do because I'm new to this world too,
Yeah.
but everybody just seems to want to think like they know what they're talking about. Then they only want to share their successes and
Mhm.
they never really share their failures. And
Yeah.
I think that learning from failure and figuring out where people messed up is
Mhm.
far more valuable than learning about what they accomplished because we're all going to make mistakes, especially in the startup world. We make a lot of assumptions about our customers. We mess up with our products all the time. And really what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to find people and experienced entrepreneurs who want to talk about their failures. Like they really just want to talk about, yeah, these are all the great things I did
Yeah.
and look at what I did. I'm like, yeah, that's cool and all, like good for you, but I really want to learn where you messed up and what you learned from that. So that way I can take that knowledge and apply it to my own projects and hopefully not make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
So I would say, I mean, there's a number of problems I see with the entrepreneurship slash startup culture, but that's definitely the biggest one is people are just so embodied in their own success that they don't own their mistakes and
Mhm.
they just want to dismiss their failures as if the failures did not contribute to their overall learning. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. And on the topic of like failures and setbacks, like what were some of the setbacks that you experienced? It can be about AppWiz or any other projects when you were getting started in entrepreneurship.
Definitely one of the biggest setbacks that I had was a lack of experience, especially with mobile app development. And that mobile app development is basically my passion, but I'm still learning. And it's an ongoing thing. Like you never master it. There's always stuff to learn.
Yeah.
But when I first started the project, I knew so little about it that like the initial version 1 of that app that I built for my school was just not where it needed to be, like not at all on par with the standards of today's apps. And
Hmm.
so just trying to figure out, how to address a lot of those technical issues. And as a programmer, pretty much 90% of my time programming is trying to figure out why something's not working.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trying to debug my mistakes and trying to fix errors in the code. And it's pretty frustrating, not going to lie. It can get very, very frustrating. I've spent up to I think the longest problems I probably spent up to 3 weeks alone just trying to fix.
Hmm.
And so on the technical side of things, it's definitely challenging to develop that kind of app because you're always going to be met with some sort of issue or something like that.
Yeah.
But also with the startup culture too, with communicating with your clients.
Hmm.
When you're a startup, you're basically desperate. Like you're desperate to
Yeah.
get their feedback. You're desperate to get them to use your app, but they're not always desperate for you. And so for you, they're your first priority, but for them, you're not necessarily their first priority. And so,
Yeah.
there'll be times where meetings will get pushed back, things like that. And it's nothing personal, it's
Mhm.
just like they have their duties as school admin that they need to fulfill. and they're very willing to help me out. But I also have to understand that what they're doing for me is very generous of them. It's outside of their job requirements, things like that. And so just being able to effectively communicate with them, I would
Mhm.
say overall I've done a good job, but it has been a challenge. We've had to do a lot of rescheduling. And, I think one more point that I have, I would say a lot of app development startups deal with something like this. They show their clients like a beta test of the app, because we've been doing a lot of beta testing,
Mhm.
and they would be like, okay, yeah, yeah, this is pretty good. We just want you to add a few things. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay. So I'll spend a few days like plugging all that stuff in, and then I'll send it back to them. And it's like, okay, what do you think? And they're like, you know what? I don't know. I kind of liked what it was before. And so it's kind of like, just pick one.
Yeah.
But so they're very, I guess they don't really understand on the client side of things, the effort that goes into just the minimal changes and stuff. But we as developers can't complain about that. Our app is for the client. So we have to just put on our happy face and just keep, making the changes that they
Yeah.
want. But although at the end, like even the picky ones, there is a point where you'll get the app just right, and then they'll be satisfied for it. And then it's definitely a good feeling.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I feel like another thing in entrepreneurship that's really big is like collaboration and working with your teammates and stuff. When you are like building a company or building like for say like a development team, what type of characteristics of like your I suppose like employees or teammates should you be looking for?
Um, I would say, and right now it's been a bit of a tough situation with the team.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us, we haven't talked with each other in a while. It's been kind of an on and off situation, mainly because of, a lot of us were all moving into college and stuff. And so
Yeah,
we kind of got, we had our own commitments and stuff.
of course.
But looking at a team, one of the biggest things that I am trying to look for is diversity, mainly diversity of skill, because, um, like one person cannot do everything that a company needs. You need people with different skill sets, different interests. You need people with, good social abilities. You need people with good technical backgrounds. You need people who know how to sell a product. So I think I'm mainly just looking for people that have different perspective on things, and people that can not just come into the company and say, okay, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. I
Hmm.
want them to almost essentially like challenge me in a way to say like, okay, how much better can we improve this product? What are some other ways that we can reach out? How can we be
Yeah.
more effective at this?
Yeah,
So
like take
basically
initiative.
challenging what's already in place to see if we can be more effective and just improve from there. That's really what I look for.
Yeah, it's a good point. And um I guess this is like a very general question, but like, what is the entrepreneurship process like? Because obviously there's a problem, but people who are just starting, it's like, where do I begin? And like,
Yeah.
is it building my team first? Do I have to like make a comprehensive plan about how everything's going to work? So like, where do you get started and how does that process work?
Yeah. So there's no set formula to do it. There's no right way to do it. But basically the biggest thing you have to do, because entrepreneurs, they essentially, like, not every entrepreneur is someone who wants to make money off of a company. Like, they want to start a company, make money. An entrepreneur is really defined as somebody who's identified a problem in society and wants
Hmm.
to address it. And so it really just starts there with just identifying problems. Usually, entrepreneurs that like to think of solutions first, they tend to end up failing because they are so wrapped up in their own solution that they fail to reach out to the people that are actually suffering from the problem and see, okay, wait, what is it that they need? Like they're just kind of wrapped in their own solution. And so I guess my how-to guide would be identify the problem. It's really the first thing. And before you even think about the solution, you just have to talk about the problem, research the problem, really reach out to those who are actually experiencing the problem, talk to several different people until you really have a strong understanding for that problem. Then you can think about, okay, what are some possible solutions that I can have? And that's when, if you want to recruit a team, you can. You don't always have to have a team.
Yeah.
Usually, for those kinds of brainstorming processes, it's really nice to have a team, because you have your own ideas and you may have some good ideas, you might have some bad ideas, the more people there, the better. And it all goes back to that diversity of thought. People might consider things that you haven't, and then you'll realize, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
And so that's a good time to have a team, and just finally figuring out, okay, we have an idea for a solution. And then you go back and you talk to those people that you talked about with the problem, and you tell them, okay, we know that you're having this problem. We've talked about it. Here's an idea for a solution that we have. Would this be something that you're interested in? And they could say, they might say yes, they might say no. And then that's kind of the point where you start working on, okay, let's build our minimal viable product. Let's see if we can and it doesn't have to be like,
Hmm.
for my app, for instance, you can just get a napkin and you can get a pen and you can draw what the app would look like. And that would be enough for an
Yeah.
MVP. And you could just show them, okay, hey, would this be something that you're kind of looking for? And if a lot of them say, yeah, that's definitely something we can look at, then you can start proceeding. But in terms of the legal aspects, because AppWiz is actually registered within the country as an LLC, that came way, way, way later, because you have
Mhm.
no idea whether your business idea is actually good or not until you start talking with your potential customers about it. And so
Yeah.
all the legalities and stuff, you usually want to save for later until you've solidified, okay, we've identified our problem, we have a solution that we know a lot of people are going to want to use. This is when we really start moving forward. But you really want to, it's really just a focus on identifying that problem and making sure your solution fits the needs of the people that are suffering from that problem.
Gotcha. And then
Yeah.
when you have like such a small like stakeholder group, for example, yours is focusing on like school administrations, how do you like approach, I guess, in a way, not only like marketing, but also trying to get like feedback from them? Because I imagine that can be a little bit difficult. Like, how would you approach that conversation and everything?
Yeah. So basically, what I would do initially to reach out with them, I would send them an email, schedule some sort of meeting. And these days, it would definitely be an online meeting.
Yeah.
But under normal circumstances, an in person meeting is better suited for this type of stuff. And it's really just about you listening, letting them talk, because that meeting is the opportunity for you to learn. So you don't want to be overwhelming in the conversation. You want to be listening. You want to talk to them about, hey, I know that this is a problem. Like, I guess if I were to do it, I would say, I know that emergency communication on campus is a problem for many schools. There aren't any available solutions for you guys. And I know that many school admins have expressed interest in
Hmm.
having some sort of solution that fills that gap. Can you tell me a little bit about if you already have a solution for the way you communicate in the event of an emergency? Can you tell me about, is that solution working out for you? If you don't have a solution, do you want to see one? And it sounds like a weird question, but you do want to ask it just in case. Like, most people would say yes to that, but better to be sure, just make sure that they actually would want a proposed solution. So you would ask them that, and then you would just get them to talk about the problem a lot, and then say, okay, well, I've done my research and thank you for sharing with me. I've talked with a lot of other school admins and I have this idea. And then that's when you start sharing with them. This is like, I'm thinking of building this app. It would work like this. Give them a demonstration if you have it. Like, I have the app ready to go on my phone. So that way, like, if I need to give any demos of the app, I could just do it right there. And
Hmm.
then ask them, like, would this be something that you're interested in? What would you want to see modified to this app? You really don't want to pressure them into saying, like, do you like my app? Would you buy
Yeah.
my app? Yes or no? Like, you want to see what you can change to make it appealing to them. And so
Gotcha.
that's basically how you would approach that.
Yeah. Okay. And this is also another question I just asked like almost every entrepreneur, but I imagine like balancing entrepreneurship with like school, academics, social life is very difficult.
Oh yeah.
I guess, do you
Yeah.
have, I mean, even without being an entrepreneur, it's difficult for me. So like, what is your like suggestion or advice to like manage and balance such things?
I would say, I guess my biggest piece of advice for that is identifying the distractions in your life. And that's something that I used to struggle with for a very long time, getting
Yeah.
wrapped up with, my friends, getting wrapped up in schoolwork. I definitely had a huge imbalance of my life for the longest time. But then I kind of just started to figure out, okay, what is going on in my life right now that's very time consuming that I feel is a distraction and I can get rid of. And you just slowly start removing those from your
Mhm.
life. And then I would say another thing too is emphasizing the importance of mental health too.
Yeah.
Like burning yourself out does not do anyone any good, especially you. You cannot take on multiple projects at the same time and assume you're going to succeed in all of them when you start burning out. And so a lot of the things that were going on in my life, I kind of just thought, okay, these are distractions. These aren't necessary. I'm going to start distancing myself from them and then just focus on my relationships at school with my friends and all that, focusing on school work and working on this project. And so it's just kind of, when you find that, let's say, I'll just use an example, like people who go home after school and then they spend like 4 hours on Netflix, like
Yeah.
every day. And believe it or not, that's actually that's pretty frequent from what I
Yeah.
found. A lot of people love to spend a lot of time on that. I used to be like a sucker for YouTube and stuff all the time,
Yeah, me too.
just watching that stuff. And as I started to phase that out of my life, I really started to realize just how much more time I had on my hands to work on the things that I really cared about. So I would say really just getting rid of the distractions and keeping yourself, mentally healthy and just making sure that you're not overworking yourself, because at the end of the day, like I said, it really doesn't do you any good if you're working on all these different things and you're just burned out. You're not going to make it. No one ever makes it when they burn out. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's absolutely right. And I guess I'm going to circle back to the QuarterZero experience, but how was that for you? And I guess, can you talk me through how it works and how do you get feedback? And are you like, is it like a competition? Because honestly, I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, I'll walk you through the program. It was probably the most beneficial thing that's happened for me in my entrepreneurship career so far, was going through that program. Basically, the way it works is we applied in May, and you can apply as either a founder or a free agent. And a founder, that doesn't actually mean you've already founded like a startup or something. That just means like you have an idea. Now, maybe you already did found a startup, but you have this idea and it's something you want to pursue. And there's way less founders, like 20% of the groups are founders. 80% of them are free agents. And free agents are basically people who they're very interested in learning about the entrepreneurship experience. Maybe they want to start their own company someday, but in the meantime, they just want to work on a startup and just get the experience. Like they're happy getting recruited into a team, essentially. And so we had about 20% founders, 80% free agents. And the way the program worked was it was a 6-week long program. 3 of the weeks were in person. So our first week was in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and we all got together and we were introduced to the QuarterZero team, and they're all very, very lovely people. And we basically, all the founders got to share out, okay, here's my idea or my project. And it was basically, they called it a founders market instead of a
Uh-huh.
farmers market, where it's like all the founders, go around, present, and then the free agents get time to walk around to all the different founders after and talk about the idea and basically sign up if they're interested. And
Mhm.
so we finally got, at the end of that day, we got our sign up sheets, and the founders, with the help of the QuarterZero team, got to pick, okay, who's going to be on their team. And so I would say I definitely picked a really solid group of people. Jesse was in that group as well. And we basically, for the rest of the week, we learned about the process of customer discovery, which is
Mhm.
basically, it's going back to that step where identifying the problem and talking to different people about that problem. And so one of our assignments was we actually had to interview people in San Francisco. And I don't remember the name of the place. It's one of the big spots in San Francisco. I don't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
what it's called. And we spent the whole day out there. They were like, okay, go out and interview people on the streets, go talk to them.
Wow.
And it was so overwhelming. And I was like, oh my God, I have to go walk up to this random lady and start talking to her. And I was like, I don't know about that. But we kind of got over, our fears, and we took the courage to go out and we started talking to people, and we actually kind of got in the routine of, randomly approaching these strangers who wanted to talk to some kids about a business idea. And that's kind of where we learned, like at that time, we talked to hotel administrators too, like hotel management. And so at one point we were actually considering making an app for hotel management too. So just, it goes to show you how wild the ideas change. And along with that week, the 2 remote weeks followed after that. We were at home, but we were still we still had to conduct interviews and stuff. And so we got together at the end of the 3rd week, approaching our 4th week, which is an in-person week, and we all went to Chicago. And my team got about, I think it was around 70 interviews or so from a bunch of different people. It was pretty cool. And they weren't all school admin. There was hotel management, stuff like that in there. But we definitely did pick school admin as a target for, a potential customer segment. And at the beginning of the 4th week, we started a process called customer validation, where it's like, okay, so now we've started to confirm that a problem exists, and it might not have been the problem that we originally came up with, but a problem exists, and we've identified some people that are suffering from this problem. Now we need to work through, how are we going to create a minimum viable product for that? What's our basic business model going to look like? And so they kind of walk us through each of the steps for that. And, along the way, there's some guest speakers and stuff. We got to work with other entrepreneurs. We listened to some speakers, got their experience, got their feedback. And basically what we learned was, okay, how are we going to present our product, essentially? Yeah. And so over the 5th week, which was a remote week, we continued to stay in contact, and we worked on our presentation. We worked on just trying to get people interested, trying to get email addresses, trying to get people that wanted to stay in touch. And the 6th and final week, so we met up in New York City. And that was definitely the most stressful week of all, because the very end of the QuarterZero program is called Demo Day. And you actually have a panel of judges, and those judges consist of various investors, veteran entrepreneurs, CEOs, stuff like that. Wow. And it's overwhelming because we have to present to all of them. And so we did not get a lot of sleep that week because we were working on our pitch deck, our presentation. It's always interesting. I'm going to go on just a bit of a side tangent here. I'm not really sure why entrepreneurs like to use the word pitch for something, because a pitch feels like a rush. I always like using the word present as opposed to a pitch. But I don't know, weird side tangent. And so we all just we totally grinded that week, and we got our presentation ready to go. We practiced and practiced and practiced in the hotel room for hours and hours, and it was so stressful. And there's also a Q&A session at the end of the demo day too. So we're like, okay, what are all the possible questions that we think they could come up with? Yeah. Let's see if we can come up with our answers beforehand. And that was definitely a challenging aspect because I was the programmer of the team, and none of my other team members knew how to program with the language that we were using. And so they didn't really they didn't grasp the way of how the app works on the back end side of things. And so it's difficult to answer questions about oh, how does the app connect to a database, stuff like that. There's always going to be technical questions and stuff that really only I'm fitted to answer. And so one of the struggles was me trying to explain how the back end of an app works to non-techie people. But we were able to make it work. And the reason why I couldn't just answer all the questions was because out of our team, there was 6 of us. One of us was going to be the presenter, and the other 5 are going to answer questions. And basically how it worked was the actual demo day. We went through all the teams. I don't remember what order we were. I'm pretty sure we were the 4th. Actually, wait, we might have been last. I don't even remember, to be honest. It was something like that. I was so stressed out. I was definitely
I imagine.
sweating out of anxiety and stuff. But I got up on the stage first because I was the only presenter. And so basically in 3 minutes, I had a slideshow, and the slideshow was styled in a very similar way to the app. We have our black and white color font, very, very minimal. The use of diagrams. We don't like to use a lot of words. We like to show pictures instead. And that 3 minutes was the longest 3 minutes of my life. But at the end, the rest of the team came up, and the panel of judges got a few minutes to just answer questions about, the product, the business idea, stuff like that. And I was really, really impressed with the way my team responded to, all the various questions. I would say that their willingness to prepare definitely helped us a lot. And so it was definitely an amazing experience overall. There to answer your question about a competition, it was a
Yeah.
competition in some senses. There were various awards. There was like the best startup award. We did not get that one. And the prize for that was actually $1,000 check, which is
Wow.
awesome. But the team that did that, they did a phenomenal job too. They definitely deserved it. But some of the other awards, I think there were 5 awards in total. One of them was like best speaker, or I guess best presenter. One of them was just like best team dynamic. And the one that we got, which I'm actually happy that we got this one, because this one's actually my favorite one aside from the $1,000 check, was we got the most investable award.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is, and the panel of judges gives that. So the panel of judges decides which teams get which awards and stuff. And so my team and I were super, super excited because we were like, okay, I mean, yeah, we didn't get that $1,000 check, whatever, but actual like investors and entrepreneurs said that, yeah, out of all these teams, they would put money in ours. And a few of them actually said like, hey, reach out to us on LinkedIn, like we can help you out and stuff.
Wow.
Afterwards. So it was definitely the most mind-blowing experience for me. Definitely the most fun I've had for a summer. I don't know if I want to call it a summer camp, but I guess some summer experience, right? Like for me, beats an internship or summer school, which was what I was doing before. I was taking classes at UCR. In California, I don't know if you're familiar with the
UC Riverside.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah, UC Riverside. Yeah.
My
I live
dad,
like 10 minutes away from there, so I would take classes there the summers before. But this experience, it was definitely amazing for QuarterZero. I'm not sponsored by them, so I'm not trying to sell them, but I definitely would recommend it for people that are interested in, learning about that experience. I think they're catered towards high school students.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're open to changing that or not. Might be a good idea, but yeah.
You should start that up.
Yeah, I should let them know, like, hey, you guys. They should open it up to college students. And I think about it,
Yeah. I guess because you were the presenter for that team, I guess going more on about presentations, because I feel like that's also a big thing that entrepreneurs have to do. For me, I'm a debater, so I have like 7 years of experience in public speaking.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Which is like beneficial, but like whenever you're doing like a group presentation or everything, like everyone like kind of freaks out, and it's like such a natural tendency. So I guess, do you have any like suggestions to overcome that fear? Obviously you get anxious. Like I was even anxious before this recording, so.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, I definitely get anxious all the time too. And I wish I was in debate, because I've always wanted to learn like, public speaking and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to just practicing to reduce that anxiety. Like we had a PowerPoint to accompany us. I guess I should say accompany me, because I was the only one speaking for the actual presentation portion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just practice. We were in the hotel room and my whole team was there. I practiced. I went through the speech probably somewhere in between 20 to 30 times, changing everything, not just from the tone of my voice, but to my hand movements, my posture, everything. Body language is huge. And the reason why it's so important for presenting, especially in the entrepreneurship world, is a lot of investors are, of course they want the idea to be sustainable, but they really look at the person too. They really want to see, okay, can I trust this person? Is this someone that I can rely on to build something? And so you really have huge impressions you have to make on the first try, and it's definitely overwhelming. So just practicing your presentation over and over and over again for the various possible questions that can be answered. Like we made a Google Doc and we put like 30 different questions on there, and we typed up the answers, and everyone knew all the answers to each of the questions. Like we were all ready to go, because we didn't know what order people were going to be called on. So we all had to prepare like we were all ready to answer those questions. And so it just comes down to practice. I would say that it definitely did reduce my anxiety. I still had it, but I would say it definitely helped. Just practicing. And I imagine, like, I don't know, because I've never been in speech and debate and all that stuff, but I have friends that have. I can imagine that you guys have to like definitely practice. And I don't know if you do improv or not, but do they have that in debate? Or
yeah, I think there's like in speech and debate, there's like different types of, I guess, speaking events, and like it's not necessarily like improv, but they have like extemporaneous speaking, which is like they give you a topic, and then you have like 15 minutes, 30 minutes to prepare, and then you have to give a 7-minute speech on the spot about like any
Oh, wow.
international policy or like domestic policy.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So like the thing about debate is like you're allowed to have like a computer in front of you so you can just like read your script that you've already written. It definitely helps with like, but of course you need to have obviously practice like different strategies. So I guess that's what helped me become a better public speaker, because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree with it's all about like practice and looking in front of the mirror and being like, wow, I really look ridiculous right now, but I can do
Yeah.
it this way.
Yeah. It's also helpful to have your friends or someone to practice too,
Hmm.
because you can test, like what we did was we did different run throughs where one of them, my team just paid attention to the words I was saying. Then another run through, they paid attention to the tone of my voice. When did my voice get higher? When do I emphasize things? And then the next run, it's like, okay, they're going to focus on my body language. And then just getting that feedback. As soon as you finish, they're like, okay, now what did I do wrong? Like, what do I need to fix? And just
Yeah.
going through over and over and over again until you perfect it.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. So I'm like a huge like STEM biogenetic engineering person, and
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, and there's this competition basically called iGEM. Not many people have heard of it. It's like a collegiate competition, but basically it's like you have to kind of start up your own kind of like biotech company, and then you have to present it. You have a year to do it. And the struggle that I've always had, my team always had, is like maintaining technicality, because you get so technical into the bio part of it in your experiments, but also maintaining that passion. And so that balance is like very difficult and hard to maintain. But with practice, it gets better, I guess. So
Yeah. Yeah. It just takes doing it over and over and over again until it becomes second nature to you.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Talking more about like programming, because that's also something that you do for that team, is like I imagine, especially during this time, is that a lot of people want to get into programming and get started up. I guess, and there's like a bunch of platforms and it's kind of overwhelming. So what
Yeah.
do you think is the best way if you want to be like a future programmer and want this time to like start up? Um, how should you approach it? Or are there like specific platforms you should use to get started?
Yeah. Now is definitely a really, really good time to get into it. Um, I guess the first thing I would do, if you're interested in being a programmer, is figure out what exactly it is that you want to program. Do you want to design and develop websites? Do you want to build mobile apps? Do you want to build specific web apps for computers? Do you want to like work on the back end of things? Like it all depends on what type of projects you want to look up. And so you basically need to figure out, okay, what is it that I'm interested in developing? And then you can research, okay, what are the different tools? Like what are the languages that I need to know? What's the software that I need to have to, to actually accomplish what it is that I want to do? What do I need to learn?
Hmm.
And then from there, like the way that I learned, and I think a lot of people learn, is through online courses.
Yeah.
Definitely, I would say online courses are the way to go. There are many super, super high quality courses that are very cheap. Like I learned from Udemy, which is a really, really great website, but things like QuarterZero, Codecademy, they're
Yeah.
all fantastic too. So you can get free courses, you can get very detailed courses. That the course that I learned for the entire language that I used to make that app was $12. So it was
So yeah.
super, super cheap, definitely worth it. But you just got to figure out, okay, what am I interested in programming in? And then what do I need to know? Like what languages do I need to know? What software do I need to download? And then
Mhm.
once you figured out, okay, these are the things that I need to learn, then you can go on these various like online course websites and then look up, okay, like let's say the language that I use is Dart. And so
Mhm.
I would go on Udemy, I would say like Dart courses or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I like to look at the reviews, see if they're high quality courses and not, because not every course is great,
Yeah.
but then just going through the course, like as the teacher is walking you through it and you're programming and definitely getting that practice too. Like practice is definitely how you get better working on your own projects. You can't just walk through the video and code side by side with the video all the way to the end of the course and then all of a sudden become an expert. Like you definitely have to get that practice. But that's definitely, I would say, the way to go, especially, when we have more time to stay at home, we have more time in front of our computers, now is definitely a great time to pick up that skill. And it's definitely an applicable skill that you can have, even if you don't want to have a startup or something like that. The demand is very, very high. It's also definitely it's a high paying career as well too. So you
Yeah,
can't
it's
go
true.
wrong with it. But it can be frustrating at times. So there's pros and cons to it.
Yeah, my only experience with, I guess, programming is taking AP Computer Science Principles. It's been a
Oh
joke
yeah, my brother took that this year.
class. I took it online. We have like a bunch of like virtual platforms to take courses because I didn't want to take it in school because you
Yeah.
just play games in school. Um,
Yeah.
and I was like learning it through this program called Alice. I don't know if you've heard of it or not,
I
but
actually haven't, no.
no, but it's just like one of those pseudocode programs, and it's one of the weirdest things ever. It's like you can add like items to it, like aliens and like out like the actually like the entire Wonderland. I guess it's fun,
Yeah.
but it definitely seems more viable to use one of those online courses that you talked about. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
a lot more efficient.
Yeah. And the online courses, basically, like if you want to take a computer science course in high school or something like that, one of my biggest problems with why, I guess, how they're teaching programming to kids these days is they like to use, now for young kids, this works fine, but like high school students, they'll use drag and drop programs, where you have like your blocks and you drag them. I'm like, that it's just not the real thing,
Mhm.
actually getting in and learning the language. I think because you can't when you're learning those drag and drop programs, you can't then walk out and actually like make a mobile app or something
Mhm.
that's, or at least a complex one at that. I mean, yeah, I know some drag and drop programs you can do that, but it's nothing super crazy and stuff. If you actually want to know the tools that professionals use and people in the industry, that's how I kind of envision the way that programming education works, is introducing people to the tools that industry experts actually use.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what I wish they do. I took AP Computer Science A 2
Yeah.
years ago, and that you learn the Java programming language, the
Mhm.
basics of that. And
Um,
that was definitely good, because it shows you the real language and stuff like that. So those courses I'm all for, but the drag and drop not so much.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess winding down to my last couple questions, is there a trend you see in like more successful entrepreneur companies? Like, is there something that they do different than people who kind of just try it and not so successful or efficient?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that I would notice is the founder and the team's willingness to adapt
Hmm.
to, just realizing that, hey, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Like I made assumptions about my customers. I made assumptions about my solution. I made assumptions about the problem I was trying to test. A lot of people are very stubborn. They're like, no, 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 my idea is going to work and I'm going to sell it. And those are usually the people that fail. The
Yeah.
ones that the ones that don't fail are the ones that acknowledge that A, they don't know everything, B, they're open to change, and they just want to talk to people and try and figure out exactly what it is that they want, because they understand that in order for their business to succeed, in order for them to make money, they have to please the consumer. It's all about, making sure the consumer is happy. And so those people that understand that actually go through the research to talk to the consumers, make sure they are happy, make sure that the product is fitting the need that or the problem that they've expressed. So I would say those are probably the biggest things that I've seen.
Gotcha. I assume that there's like a lot of alphas in the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely a lot of people are just full of themselves. It's
Yeah.
almost sad in a way because it's very difficult because you want to learn from them,
Hmm.
but they want you to learn from their successes and they want to turn it into a storytelling. And really, to learn, you really got to learn about the failures. You really got to learn about what they did not do right. So the people that express humility and the people
Hmm.
that own their mistakes and go, yeah, I thought for the longest time that I was right, but then I finally talked to some people, realized I didn't, pivoted the company into a different direction. Those kinds of people are usually the ones that really make it successful, I guess.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
my last question is what is next for you? I know you're going to Georgia Tech. What are you pursuing there and on?
Yeah, so I'll be majoring in computer science at Georgia Tech. Super, super excited. Just to go over to the East Coast, and I love Atlanta anyways.
Mhm,
So I am definitely excited. I really chose Georgia Tech because it's very strong in entrepreneurship. And
mhm,
so I'm not I'm not majoring in business. I'm considering double majoring. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that just yet. I think
mhm.
business courses are valuable, but also they have a lot of startup accelerators,
Yeah.
various competitions, and Georgia Tech has so many resources for aspiring entrepreneurs and startups to help develop them into mature companies. There's a lot of networking opportunities for you to meet with people that are interested in helping you grow your company and stuff. So, aside from taking my studies seriously and growing my passion for computer science and also having fun meeting new people, I definitely plan on participating in startup accelerators, bringing AppWiz with me, and trying to see what more I can learn about it because I have
Mhm.
so much to learn. I'm so new to this world. I really don't know that much about it,
Yeah.
but I know that I can through Georgia Tech. I could get the help, the advice, the mentorship that I need to help my company grow and build a scalable product and hopefully become a success. But we'll just have to wait and see. But that is, I guess, those are the next steps for me.
Yeah. Good luck with all that, and thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much
you.
for your time and
Yeah,
doing
thank you